Good morning. It is 10:30 a.m. It is Sunday, and that means it is time for Sundae Club, which is a live streaming show where every week we take a look at some Ruby on Rails. And together we kind of build an app and take a look at different aspects of the app together. What does the app do? Well, you can kind of turn up and give it a YouTube channel ID. And now you can give it your Twitch channel ID, and then the app will go and retrieve the videos and streams from that channel. It will store them all and then create a little mini web page listing them all. And that's all it really does. And each week we look at a different aspect of building the application or a gem that we might use or something like that. And it's just like a super low, easy way to just go and look around things. Nothing formal, just really casual. And we go take a look around some stuff. Only one bit of housekeeping this week, which is that for people who watch this either live or later on Twitch, which isn't a huge number of people, but I know people already who use Twitch really like it. I still can't work out how to not have to give Twitch the name of a computer game. And so there is a game called Rails. So if anyone asks, we are playing Rails and we're loving it, and that's all good. So I'm going to actually submit a support request to Streamlabs to see if I can work out how to not have to give Twitch the name of the title of the game that we're playing, because I didn't have to do that. So they updated a version of Streamlabs, and now that's a thing I have to do every stream. So apologies to anyone who's wants to play this game called Rails. I have no idea what that game is, but I might look it up. Okay, so what are we going to do this week? So I still want to bring the app kind of and just wrap this application up, but I've got a lot going on at the moment, and so I haven't had a chance, as usual, to look at anything midweek. And we have kind of covered all of the main stuff that I was really kind of interested in and curious to look at. So there's stuff on Hotwire and just turbo streams and all that kind of stuff throughout the application. So you can go back and look through the YouTube channel for Sundae Club if you're interested in any of those things. So I think we are still just rounding things off on this application. And I finished a big, or not finished, but like a large project to work is kind of like coming past its major point. And I'm still trying to work on some moving house and things like that. So I think what we'll do is for the next week or two, just do some stuff that, basically just stuff that I've come across in the app that I'm interested in. And this week, I thought it would be cool to carry on with OAuth. And what we ended up doing with this was we wanted for the application to be able to go and retrieve information from Twitch and YouTube. And so we used just an API key, read-only API key for YouTube, which we were able to set up in their API dashboard. But and because we had a gem that would kind of go and handle all of those things, for Twitch, we had to kind of roll our own. So we registered an application on the dev portal. We went and got we had the client ID and the client secret, and then we got given our access token, and we were able to use that. And so the missing gap in there is that we weren't able to actually change anything on any of the channel information or any of the videos. And someone pops one of the comments in the YouTube videos, which is like, hey, can you update the thumbnails for your videos? Because they're all the same, apart from like 3 that I did. And yes, I completely agree. It's actually really annoying for me not to be able to know which video is which when you're looking at them all. So I was like, oh, it would be cool to be able to do that through the application. Maybe like, I wonder if that's a good chance to kind of cross that last hurdle of OAuth and be able to actually update individual channels and do things through the Sundae Club app that then happen on YouTube or on Twitch. And I thought that would then also be an interesting way. I don't think I've ever written one of those from scratch. Pretty sure I've just tried to avoid it. So I've always used gems that were doing that work for us. This gem does it. Let's go and look how some other gems do it. Then let's go and try and roll our own. That might take a week or two, but just super casual. No idea if we're going to make any progress on this. The ones where where we've explored things in the past have had a real mixed outcome. So let's jump straight into it. I'm just going to move over to take a look. So what's on the screen at the moment? Let's just make this the full screen. So this is the YT gem. So we used this gem for our basically interacting with YouTube via the application, and it handled everything really well. It already had all the models we needed and just was super straightforward. And all we needed to do, all it took care of, because we just wanted read-only access to information that was already public, like the public videos on a channel, we just had to give it a I'm just scrolling through the docs here. This is on the GitHub page for the gem. Yeah, so apps that do not require user interaction. So that was us. If you're building a read-only app that fetches public data from YouTube, all you need is a public API access. So that's all we did. So in the Google Developers Console thingy, God, do you remember when Safari looked like that? I missed that. That kind of Lucida font. Oh, missed that. And we made a key and it worked great. So we just give them the key via this configuration and everything worked out of the box. We didn't have to do anything. So we assumed that that gem is then doing for YouTube what we then had to do ourselves for Twitch. And in fact, I'm so interested in that. Let's go and take a look and check that that assumption is correct. So let's open this up and jump back down to here. Yeah, so remember, this is the YT gem. And so hopefully we can see, oh, is this the one we looked at last week where it was building the request? I think this is the one this we looked at last week. So when we were doing the Twitch integration, I was basically pointing out that I think we just hard coded everything, to be honest. But I was like, oh, well, you could do it this way, and you read a bunch of gems that do it, and they were building the headers, and then there was like a method down here somewhere that set the token, and you could maybe either pass in an auth object that you'd created that had the access token in it, and again, you would potentially, if that token needed refreshing, you could go and check that it was valid and refresh it and do all of that, so that your end client, which might be for a gem, it might be an app using the gem, or for us it was just other code in our application. You just said, go and get me this information, and you didn't care about the token or anything like that. All of that was handled by the integration code. So yeah, this is doing what we expect. So let's move on to this. So web apps that require user interactions. If you're building a web app that manages YouTube accounts, you need the owner of each account to authorize your app. There are 3 scenarios. If you already have the account's access token, then you are ready to go. Just pass that access token to the account initializer, such as, well, we won't have anything. So we don't, that doesn't apply to us yet, I don't think. So I'm guessing if you've already run some sort of flow to get that token, I would assume. If you don't have the account's access token, but you have the refresh token, then it's almost as easy. In the Google Developers Console, find the web application that was used to obtain the refresh token, copy the client ID and client secret, and add them to, there's a typo there, your code with the following snippet of code, replacing with your own keys. So it's client ID, client secret. Then you can manage a YouTube account by passing the refresh token. So I'm assuming that what the refresh token allows you to do is go and get a new access token, is my understanding from, I don't know if I used this, I think, the illustrated guide. So we looked at this little cartoon, this is essentially how my brain understands things. This is the level at which I am mainly working. It's like cartoon-based arrows in my brain being like, what? Okay, so I think your refresh token. This doesn't have anything else. Okay, maybe I'm completely wrong on that. Okay, what does OAuth refresh token purpose? Oh god, let's try the official. The refresh, there's a lot of talks. The refresh token grant type is used by clients to exchange a fresh token for an access token when the access token has expired. This allows clients to continue to have valid access token without further interaction with the user. Yeah, that's kind of what I understood it to be, but when... Oh god. Yeah, okay, so this is one of the things I like to avoid for today, is just diving too deep in any of reading these docs. So I think for me this flow is like it's not crazy, any of this stuff. Like, you're just making the requests and getting the stuff back and storing the right things and making sure you're doing everything. But it's really like holding it all in your, this is really stupid, but like holding it all in your head is the bit that I struggle with, and then like remembering it from one week to the next, which is why if a gem does it, it's so handy. Okay, so if you don't have any account tokens, that's us, then you can get one by having the user authorize your app through the Google OAuth page. So that's what we're going to have to do. In the Google Developers Console, click on Create New Client ID in the OAuth section and select Web Application. Fill the authorized redirect URI text area with the URL of your app. Once the client ID for the web application, right, I'm going to do this in the other screen. Again, I don't know if this is just pointless, but what we did last time is I tried to keep the, I don't know if this is going to happen. Google API dashboard. This is probably really stupid again. Like in terms of what I show, but then I think if we just make a new, if we make a new app here, make a new client, and then just trash it at the end of the stream, hopefully that's enough to not have everything too trashed. So create client ID, IPs and auth credentials, create client IDs, IPs credentials, OAuth 2 client IDs, create credential, OAuth client ID. None of this looks like this anymore. This has all been redesigned. A client ID is used to, I'm reading off the other screen. Client ID is used to identify a single app to Google's OAuth servers. If your app runs on multiple platforms, each will need its own client ID. To create an OAuth ID, you must first select a product name on the consent screen. Configure consent screen. Choose how you want to configure and register your app, including your target users. You can only associate one app with your project. Internal, available only to users within your organization. You will not need to submit your app for verification. Available to any test user with a Google account. Test user? Your app will start in testing mode and will only be available to users you add to the list of test users. Once your app is ready to push to production, you may need to verify your app. Okay. Okay, well, let's do external, because that's really the one that we would want to do, and see what testing mode even looks like. Oh, and then I have to fill in, oh my god, so much information. Okay, bear with me here, because this is the admin of it all. User support email. Okay, app logo, is that mandatory? No. Application homepage, is any of that mandatory? Can I just skip all of that? Privacy policy link, terms of service link. You can see this if you go to the Google API dashboard thingy and sign in with your account. Authorized domains, developer contact information. Okay, can I just save that? Great, okay. Scopes express the permissions you request users. I think I can just show this part on the screen. Hang on a second. I'm just going to bring this stuff over. Okay, so scopes express the permissions you request users to authorize your app and allow your project to access specific types of private user data from their Google account. Add or remove scopes. Non-sensitive scopes, sensitive scopes, restricted scopes. Okay, what we got? So we got 12. Manage your YouTube videos. Manage. See, edit and permanently delete your videos. Manage your YouTube account. View YouTube account. Oh, I should really have thought about what we actually want to do. So we can't do any of those. Don't really care about those ones. We kind of want to download your public. So we kind of want to see, edit, and permanently delete your YouTube videos, ratings, comments, and captions. I think it's this one that we want. I don't know what manage your assets and associated content is. I'm guessing we could Google what these are, but let's assume this one. I don't know what. Managing the ad scopes. If the scopes you would like to add do not appear in the table above, you can enter them here. Each scope should be finished on a new line. No, I don't know what they are, but we can worry about that later. Okay, so that's a sensitive but not restricted scope. Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna move this back onto the other screen in case something like super secret pops up. Oh, test users. While publishing sets of testing, only test users are able to access it. Only allowed user. Add users. I don't know quite what I'm adding there. Just gonna add my 2 Google accounts that I've got. I guess that'll do. I've never set up a YouTube app before, so I don't know quite how that works. Great, okay, there's a summary. Back to dashboard. Am I done? Where are my keys? Give me my keys. So OAuth consent screen, great. Okay, oh, application type, a web application. So now I've gone to another page. Sorry, I know I'm doing this off screen, which is really annoying, but I'm just trying to... Okay, so this is... I'm going to bring this back. So we're going to create OAuth client ID. Name the application Sundae Club. This value can't contain wildcards or paths if usable. So we can make this like... Do we want to add in our test stuff on here, I assume? Same thing here. I'm guessing if we try and add the HTTP one, it won't work because it's not HTTPS. Okay, we're going to again test over here. Hit create. Great, so I've got a client ID and a client secret. Amazing. Right, so what does this... I mean, I'm going to destroy this at the end anyway, so I think I'm okay to put it on the stream. Like, no one steal it. Right, so we now have this. Yes, this is the 2 bits of information I was given. Amazing. Okay, so let's just go and configure it. Let's just jump over to the app. So again, we're relying on the gem doing all of the heavy lifting for us here. So YT. So I don't know if that API key is still in use. So that's this. Let's copy this. And I can actually, well, if I take this off screen as well, I can actually copy these over and just close this and then know that it's done. So I don't need to put them on the screen. Super sneaky. So that's one. That's the other. Okay, so I can close that. I can close that file. Right there, now I'm done. Finally, in your web app, add a link to the URL generated by running YT account new. Okay, so we could just load the consoles up for that. Or maybe we need to actually run, maybe it needs the URL helpers or something. Scopes. Oh, what's scopes? It says scopes. It doesn't tell me what the scope is. Oh, where okay, it does. Right underneath. Come on, Max, get it together. Where redirect URI is the URI you entered in the form above. Yeah, so just put localhost. And scopes is a list of YouTube scopes you want the user to authorize. Okay, so close that. Open that. Just want to get my list of scopes correct. The domains of the URIs you added below will automatically consent as authorized domains. Where can I get a list of scopes from? Oh, here. Okay. Nope. Sorry, bear with me. I'm just trying to get those back because I just ticked one and didn't actually copy and paste what it was. Good morning in the chat. It's Sunday morning, OAuth. Perfect time for OAuth. Okay, so... so I've asked for a scope and I just ticked a box. Didn't really pay attention to what the scope was called. So I need to get that back somehow. And now I'm just on the other screen just because I'm pootling around in my Google API dashboard thingy. And it will let me edit the app name and everything, but I can't seem to change the... Oh, okay, I have to go through this, then through this. Okay, great. So it's... So the scope name it's given me is this one. So I'm assuming when this where I've got two browsers open. So when this is saying to generate the URL to go and trigger the OAuth flow, we want to pass in the scopes and the redirect URI. Well, the redirect URI we've put in. Depending on the nature of app, you can pick one or more. YouTube.read-only, userinfo.email. So is ours YouTube.force.ssl or is it your auth/? How do I remove scopes? Oh, so that one's userinfo.email. Userinfo.email. So it's just the bit after the slash. Okay, cool. So this one is YouTube.force/ssl. Okay, great. So in our console, sorry, I just want to put this browser tab in that thing up here. There we go. Right. So I'm just going to do this in the console and see if it will give us back. Oh, that's handy. They put a copy thing on there. Yeah, I didn't want you to actually run. There we go. So now we can do redirect URI. That's HTTPS localhost 3000. So you wouldn't actually want people redirected to the homepage necessarily, but let's just test that we can get what we want. And then it was, I've already forgotten. YouTube.force-SSL. YouTube.force-SSL. So we get a URL back. And we go there. What happens? Cool. Missing required parameter scope. It just says scope. Oh, is that an array or something? Yeah, look, if we got scope equals on the end of the URL here. Let me bump the font size of this up. We've got scope equals, but it hasn't accepted that. So scope, but it's scopes. So let's assume that's probably looking to take an array. Yeah, cool. As usual, better than reading the docs is just guessing at what you've bothered to not read. Okay, cool. So Google hasn't verified this app. You've been given access to an app that's currently being tested. You should know. Continue. This is all working. Okay, this is amazing. So now we're going to get redirected back to our... Oh, we need to turn a server on, actually. So this should get a request with our key in it. Localize. Yeah, great. So here's the codes that we need. Perfect. Okay, great. So... Invalid HTTP format parsing fails. Why is it an invalid format? It's only a URL with a params on the end. Is it because it's HTTPS? Yeah. Okay. So we could set up like an ngrok or something like that to receive it. Okay. Wow, that was great. So the gem is doing all of the work for us there in generating the URL. Every user who authorizes your app will be redirected to the redirect URI. So we saw that happening. It didn't pop up with the screen because the local app isn't configured to do HTTPS. But if we jump over to our server, you can see that we got it was trying to process those requests, and then I just chopped them off the end here. Yeah, I haven't put the client secret on the screen, have I? Because I was going to say, like, this is just access to my YouTube channel now. This is not great. But fine, we'll figure it out together. So we get code and scope. So this is what we got back. Yep, so that can go. Cool. And so we can then, so what we can do is take this code and then use that here. Every user who will be redirected with an extra code parameter that looks something like blah, blah, blah. Yep, except ours is way longer. Just pass the code to the following method to authenticate and initialize the account. So as an alternative to approach, you can configure your app with variables setting the... Okay, well, that's just a different config method. Okay, and how to test. So what can we now do that we couldn't do before? We can, in our console, we can presumably update the description of this live stream while we're on the live stream, which sounds pretty cool, not gonna lie. So let's do... So code equals... Yes, this should already have been configured because the gem is getting it from the config. Yeah, I don't think we put it. Okay, so let me bring that up onto this screen. Bear with me a second, just so you can see the thing here. Okay, so let's take this code and set this in the console as our code. And what else did it want? YouTube new authorization code redirect URI. I wonder if we could just set an ngrok thing up now, just because otherwise because it'll want HTTPS, but did it allow us to put an HTTP in the dashboard thing? Oh, it didn't say. Well, it doesn't really matter because we can just do it via the console anyway. Sorry, bear with me. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm trying to do here. So we can take this. And then this can just be code because we've already saved that. And redirect RI can just be the one we gave YouTube. Great. Okay, so we have this account thing, this object. So now we can say account.email, account.videos. Will that now work? Dot size. 38. Okay, great. So let's get videos.last. Will it be this video? Undefined method last for collections videos. Okay. I don't know what that. This is not a new. Oh, we do this already though. This is in like the YouTube. What channel videos? Or I can just do videos. Video. And then we can just output the title. Yeah. Under like a YouTube video. Oh. So I'm just checking we can get what we need. Oh, okay, yeah, loads of stuff on here. So is this video that we're currently making on this list? No. Okay, so they're in order and it's last week's video we can do. Okay. But videos doesn't have dot last. That doesn't matter. We can just say does it have first? Just being optimistic here. It does, great. But it doesn't have last? Let's just do the first one, whatever. So this can now be video. Great. So does it have video dot description? Okay. And so can we then do the video dot description? This. Well, just put text. Doesn't matter, does it? Did you mean description? Okay, so I can't write description. Okay, so I need to read the gem docs to see how to actually do that. This is stuff I can retrieve. Because I've got my code. So let's go and take a look at the rest of the docs. How to install. What is coffee? Okay. So video. Video.like I can do. Video.tags is only available as the video account. So does it know that I'm the video owner? Yeah, okay. Well, unless that appears as empty anyway. So can I do video.like? Ooh, okay, cool. Video updates, video update title. Okay, so it's video.update that I need to do. Title, license, text. What can I pass to update? Update thumbnail I can do. Right, this is the one we're actually looking for. Update thumbnail is really cool. So this was because of feedback from someone in the comments that was like, hey, all of these thumbnails are the same. And I completely agree. It's really annoying. So let's just try changing. Oh, can I not change the description? Oh yeah, you can. Okay, great. The video update description. Okay, so it's just this. It's just the method we had was wrong. So it's not that we set a new description. It's that we call this was updated from the API. And we're going to call video.update description. Video.description. Oops. Oh, because then it's just, sorry, that's still trying to do that. So I think we can just do that. Oh my God. So we can go to, I've got YouTube open another tab actually, hang on a second. Right, okay, so what we'll do this week is do this YouTube one with the aid of the gem, but then what I want to do is go and look at how the gem is doing this, and then we'll do the same thing for Twitch, which didn't give us all of the things. So I'm guessing it's this video that we're working on here. I actually didn't check. She didn't check what the video was. Video.title, Twitch integration testing. Oh, first it was the other way around. Okay, great. So it was last week's. Twitch integration and testing. Amazing, look at that. So cool. Okay, great. So right, let's just take a step back for a second and just I'm kind of plowing through this real quick. But if you're watching this and be like, just tell me what's going on, I'm lost. So we set the application up on Google API dashboard, and you basically have to tell YouTube, tell Google, hey, I want to set up an application that's gonna diddle with people's accounts, like have control over people's accounts. And that is different from what we did previously, which was where we just created an API key, which was, hey, I have an app that just wants to do what anyone can do on YouTube, just like read stuff that's publicly available. So when you have that key, all we needed was the key, and YouTube would just let us do whatever we wanted. They would check our usage, and then they can turn that access off, or they can check that we're not using too much or whatever it is. That was handled in again, this screenshot is out of date, but in credentials you then just have what app do you want to, what key do you want? I want a YouTube key. Great, here you go, and then you can destroy it and reset it and things like that. Because this time we want to act on behalf of users, we want to change data on the system. It's not read-only. Then we actually had to go and create in here an OAuth. It's in the OAuth consent screen section, and you're basically saying, I need to show, I need to show users a consent screen. I want to have this much. The scope is like, I want to have this much power. This is what I want to be able to change. And you show the user the screen that asks them for permission, and then you send them back to this this specific URL on my server. And so then we went through that, and it was like, hey, we want to be able to change these videos. You're like, great. It was said, hey, it's in testing mode, so only these users can do it. That's good too. And then if you need to do that for public, when you're making a real application you want to make available to the public, that would have to get reviewed by Google, and they would probably charge you £1 million. I don't know what they do. And it was probably free. That's a joke. I just know that sometimes they have those security things where you have to pay a bunch of people. When the user then comes back from that, we got the code in that URL. So we clicked on, yes, I'm willing for this application to do this on the permission screen. And it was like, it took us back to our redirect URI, which is like, where on your own application would you like us, Google, to send the user when we're happy? And you give them a URI. And the param is the code and the scopes that they have granted. And so you take that code and we would store that. I'm just doing this really quickly, but we would basically store that somewhere against the appropriate model. So we'd be like, right, well, this account or this user can do these things. The user doesn't need to see that code. That's not for them. That's your application's representation of that permission that you can do it. So you just store that in the database somewhere. And then what the gem is allowing us to do is saying, right, well, when you then need to make one of those changes, we have this model called an account, and you pass that code to the account model, and we will then, like, the gem will take care of everything from that point forward, which is really great. So then when we're in the console, we're then able to do whatever we want as that account. So we can just go and like things, and we can update the title and things like that. And YouTube will still maintain, like, can this person do this? Like, that code is for my Google account, and my Google account owns the YouTube channel. If I had a code that had come back from a different OAuth flow from a different user and then tried to update this channel, Google was still saying, no, it's not, the code doesn't allow us to do whatever we want on YouTube. The code represents them being able to check that permission for that user. I'm hoping this is making some sense. So we're just not currently storing that code. We've just added it literally into this call up here somewhere. Because I've output so much stuff, it must be right at the top. Oh my god, right at the top. What's happening? Yeah, so we just popped in here, account new, YT account new authorization code, and then redirect URI. So if we were to try and change a different video, we wouldn't be allowed. So that is cool. Why don't we go and take a look then at how the gem is handling that, because we really want to do the same thing for Twitch. I don't really want to get into Twitch today, because I think that's worth doing on its own episode or its own stream, but kind of for a specific reason. So let's go and take a look in here. Just going to go read some code. Let's do that. It's a nice Sunday morning thing to do. Oops, I'm just smashing up my... Yeah. So we've got an account here. So this is like really neatly described here. Provides methods to interact with YouTube accounts. So the account has one user info, delegates the ID to user info and the email to user info. Great, so we've got upload video. So what we can check here is when it does these things, presumably before it does them, it channel has authentication. Okay, great. See these little like one-liner descriptions. Some people are really like not into those. I wonder if kind of their perception of those changes, because for a gem it's really can be really helpful. Sometimes they're not too helpful if you don't yet know the domain space that you're actually working in. So you're like, this might be like, I mean, YouTube's fairly straightforward, but it might be like how many bloop blorps are within the config Wizmo, you know, but it links to the doodad, and you're like, you're reading the one liner, you're like, oh, that doesn't help me at all. But once you then have that domain specific language, they sometimes like, oh, for me, I find it useful to be like, hey, I probably don't need that right now. That's what I look for. Whereas if you have to read the code, you're like, oh, God, I have to work out what this is doing before it tells me whether I need that right now. Whereas if I'm like, oh, I think I'm looking for something, and this thing tells me it's in the ballpark of what I'm looking for, then I can dive into the code. The downside, as usual with comments, is they can go out of sync with what's in the actual method. But a well-maintained gem would have kind of multiple eyes checking on that. In your own code, I tend not to do it as often just because I'm not as diligent as many gem writers. Okay, so what is in the has authentication? We've got YT association has authentication. YT collections authentications, authenticatable. Yeah, so you can see what's that in here? 90. Yeah, so this is what we kind of touched on last week, and I think the week before when we were looking at the building your own one for Twitch, which is this idea of like having something that represents having an object that represents the authentication data you need, and then kind of going and if it's not right, you can then update it. But if it is right, you can just pass it around. So then you only need to deal with that in one place. So and what am I trying to say there is like, so this current data is like, okay, well this knows that it should have access token expires at refresh token. If you didn't have something called like YT : authentication, what you might do is maybe just use a hash every time you needed to do that. And you kind of pass the hash around a few times, but then you have a few different entry points. And in one place, the hash then changes. And you're like, oh, crap, we've got the access token and it expires over here, but we've forgotten the refresh token because we didn't need it previously. Whereas if you define that as a class that you can then say, well, this is what authentication is or what it looks like, or just define what attributes it needs. However you're setting that up, again, this is just for this gem, but like you make it easier to then not have to think about that in the future. You're like, always use this thing, and then we could modify the thing if it has different needs. I'm hoping that made some use of to someone in the future. But this is all. So authenticate. So okay. So if it's not. So the current authentication, we set it up, and that defines authentication. And if it's nil, then it goes off to make a new authentication object with the current data, and the current data is this. If there's an access token, okay. Return authentication unless it's nil or it's expired. And so I'm assuming that if none of that works, it will just return nil. And if current authentication is nil, then it will try and use the refresh token. And what does use the refresh token do? Presumably, it goes and uses the refresh token to get a new access token. Refreshed authentications dot first and refreshed authentications. Collections authentications dot sort out. Okay, so this is where okay, so refreshed authentications. Are there any? If not, going. Authentications of self, so it'll pass in. So I don't know what collection authentications is doing. Okay, so you can have. Okay, I'm not 100% sure what the collection of authentication does. I think that's a gap in my awareness of what the fuck is going on. Device code authentications. But that is how these are all built. Does it say at the top? No, there's nothing on that one. Okay. So I would look into that further, but I'm just kind of going to breeze over it neatly. Use authorization code. If authorization code, use device code. I wonder what the difference between these ones is. So I think it refreshed. So what actually happened when we called that? So that refreshed authentication then just goes to fill that in with the params from this. So all it's doing is getting, and it's refreshing that data because these have been retrieved. Okay, I think that's what's happening. Fine. So that's with a refresh token. Then an authorization code. And the code is the one that we had. Is that an authorization code? I would assume so. Yeah, code. Okay, so that's what we gave it, code. And then read it. So this is the one we used. Great, okay. And this is, right, so in the docs initially, it was like, right, you've got 3 scenarios. You can either give it a refresh token, you can either give it code, the refresh code, or you can give it or you can generate a URL and go get the stuff you need. Right, okay, so that's what these two are doing. Okay, fine. I don't really know what's happening there specifically to going create the collection of those rather than just doing one, but I don't think that matters really. That's just a specific thing. Use device code. So what's device code? Device code authentications. Device code. Okay, so that must be something that tries to obtain access token using the device code, which must be confirmed with the user code. On failure, raise an error. Yeah, I don't know what device code is. Okay, that's fine. It's just another way of authing. And then raise missing authentication. So if none of that's worked, when you've got that and that, and what is that actually returning? Just the hash? Oh, it's just return. Oh, I see. So it's just popular. It's assuming that contains the information you need for the error. Sorry, I missed what the fuck was happening there. So that is just generating error information to go on the end of this race. So basically, it hasn't worked. You need to know why. This builds a little thing to check on the end of the exception and then raises. Okay, cool. So that is all good. Okay, there's just so much going on there. So if if we want to do the same thing for our Twitch code, we did have like a Twitch, and the last thing I want to look at is actually changing the YouTube thumbnail one, just because that's kind of what triggered this off. So in here, let's see if this gem handled all that stuff, because there was a gem available, but we decided to use our own. Great. Okay, so this is the default flow token type, which is, yep, that's what we did. We had an application token. If there are no access token and refresh token, Twitch OAuth 2 error will be raised with metadata link. If you have a web application with end users, And redirect them to this link and use application callbacks. Okay, cool. So after initialization, check tokens, old tokens if they're actual or new tokens. Great. So this is some of the stuff we were looking at last week and the week before, and we didn't bother to look at this gem, which probably would have helped, but we just did it ourselves. Okay, so this is the same. This is the equivalent behavior, but for Twitch. So we've got the YouTube gem over here in this tab, and we've got the Ruby-Twitch-API gem, which is not first party. The YouTube one isn't first party as well. I think it was just more widely used. But I was wondering if we could look at entitlement grant. I was wondering if we could look at the same thing with a different gem and be like, oh, I wonder if they've approached things in the same way. So they've got Twitch OAuth 2 client new, client ID, token type, check tokens, connection header. Right, okay, so this is, bring this over here. So what is libTwitch clients that they have got? Is Twitch OAuth 2 dependency on this? So I'm just looking to see. So where does Twitch OAuth 2 come from? Can I just do OAuth 2? Ah, here we go. So yeah, it is. Oh, I read the gem form, but not the right. So this is in the gem spec. Okay, cool. So there's a separate gem called Twitch OAuth 2. Let's take a look at that. It's a Rails one. Twitch authentication with OAuth 2. Result tokens can be used for API libraries, chat libraries, or something else. Great. So this is really interesting. So this is a gem using another gem to handle the OAuth 2 stuff. So that then your when we were looking at this previously, we had Sundae Club had made a little Twitch client, and I was like, oh, and you could use. We made it in like our lib directory. I think it's still in here. It's pretty rough. From last week, and in here we made a very basic API, and we just hard coded all of this stuff. And what I was saying was, well, you could need to go and handle that somehow. So you can choose how, but you could make your own gem that handled it for you. You could use this gem alone. So Twitch OAuth 2, I didn't know that existed, but we could get rid of all of that stuff and just be like, hey, here you go. Here's the whatever we need, whatever we have. This was just the application token, but we could do the same process for Twitch and get a user token. So maybe that's what we could do next week, is get this gem working in this client library and get that flow running. That could be pretty interesting. So let's see. Yeah, so this now is starting to look really familiar. So client ID, client secret, scopes, and the redirect URI. So like, I'm assuming if you're in OAuth land all the time, I don't meet many people that seem to love working in OAuth land all the time. So I'm assuming there's some really strange or like behavior that's not too fun. But there's loads of stuff to look at in terms of other people doing the same thing. So that's really, I find that really helpful, looking at how other people have approached the same thing. Yep. So this is looking at what we were doing previously, which is building the URLs, making the requests, receiving them, checking all the tokens and everything, and then building that request with all the correct headers and whatever it needs before it makes the response. So again, if you're interested in that for what we were playing around with in the last couple of streams, worth taking a look at. And then they have the details of these. So similar things, but different approach as to how these are being built. And again, like PRs and commits in these repos are really interesting. Okay, so there's one last thing I want to take a look at, which is back on the YouTube side, which was the YouTube thumbnail, because that's why I was actually interested in this. So from here, there seemed to be one called update. Oh, it must have been in the actual one for the video. I think it was YT colon video. Yeah, so we can go back to these docs. So this is all read only. Right, so now we can upload the thumbnail. Just seeing what else is on here, actually. Just going to. Wow, okay, look at all of this. So I'm presuming there are third-party apps that have like really rich, especially like dashboards and all this cool stuff. This is not a world in which I know anything about, and I don't get enough views on any of the videos I make to ever look at any of this stuff. So it is not something I do, but I am interested in the upload thumbnail. So let's go and get so that accepts a URL. That's interesting. So we have got, active storage running. Okay, so we could do, oh my God, we could totally make this work. So I wonder if this will take a local URL. Right, so if you remember ages ago, we worked on the control panel edit form. So we did this control panel videos edit form. Yeah, and so we had a file filled. Wow, yeah, okay, this is what I'm remembering all of this. So we used view component, and we had this. This is a file field, and then it will upload a custom thumbnail. And then when we show the video, we check to see if there's a custom thumbnail, which uses active storage, and then updates that. So it shows the custom video rather than the default one, which comes from YouTube. Now, the reason I was pausing there is what we can do is if the YouTube channel had the OAuth information stored against it, we could have a callback on the model that was like, if the custom thumbnail has just been updated, update the YouTube thumbnail as well. So you could make the Sundae Club app the source. So I don't know what that would look like. It would look probably something like just in the chat. Sorry, I have a burning question that I keep forgetting to ask. How do you debug in VS Code? Answer when you have good time to do so, so don't get distracted on my behalf. I'm just okay. I'm going to answer that. The answer, of course, as usual, is poorly, but it's going to be after create, so I'm going to come back to that question. So after create, we could say update, I don't know, YouTube thumbnail or something like that. And then I'm assuming on Active Storage you get like the same dirty API that you get on everything else. So you would get custom thumbnail changed. I actually don't know if that exists on Active Storage, but it doesn't really matter. All I'm trying to say is like you just whatever code indicates that has been updated, do that. And then in here, you then say, well, we haven't put an API in it, but like wherever you put that auth flow, so like the token thing that we need will be it's in the YouTube gem. It's called account, but you could store that in our application at the what do we have? We have organization, site, channel, video is like they're our models. And so you could say, well, let's put all the tokens on the channel as a separate, so you could either store it on that record, or you could say that a channel has one or has many YouTube auths or something like that. You could do it that way. So you could, but then you could have a method on the channel object that was just channel.update YouTube thumbnail or something like that. Because again, you might do the Twitch one as I actually don't know if Twitch has thumbnails or how that works. And then you could pass it the custom thumbnail.url. Again, I actually don't know if .url is the right syntax, but this is just pseudocode to try and highlight. You wouldn't, channel could then reach through to the gem code, because you need this code to be called. Come on, Max, articulate this. You need this to be called wherever you're keeping the OAuth information to allow that to happen, because the individual video won't have the key to update that. It might be on the channel level that's happening, but so you might have you might pass that a video and the thumbnail URL or something like that. I'm hoping I articulate any of that correctly. I was just kind of thinking that through quickly. Because you're going to need to say which video am I updating the thumbnail URL. And then you are going to, like that should work. So we should actually be able to do this on, I'm not going to try and build that now because I'm describing it and it's doable. I think we can just do it in the console. So we can do video. Well, let's get the. So we've got this video which is integrated. So that's the one from last week. Do we have the equivalent of that? Oh, maybe we could do that next week. Actually, we could do the Twitch one as well. Yeah, maybe we could build this next week. So that could be then the project. So we'd store the OAuth flow results, and then when we made the change in the UI, we would expect to see them reflected. Maybe that actually is worth doing. I've just kind of pseudocoded this out, so I'm just gonna delete that because that's not real. That's just one approach you could take for it. Yeah, just to kind of close that circle on where would we put the OAuth details and how would that work? And then we could also use the Twitch gem, the Twitch OAuth 2 gem, to do the same thing for the Twitch channels. But we never defined how we were going to do each channel. It doesn't really matter. We looked at using delegated types. Okay. I'm also aware that I'm trying to wrap this application up, so I don't really want to create 3 or 4 weeks worth of stuff to try out. I think that's worthwhile. Okay, let's just do one just to see it working, just because I'm super excited about that. So we've got this video here, and can we go back on all of these? Just use the same thumbnail. So can we just grab like Can we just go to like Unsplash and grab something that won't get in trouble for using? It's like, just want like a generic. Oh, can we type in like Ruby? It'd be cool if there's pictures of rubies or something. Oh, look at this. Okay, let's use this one. That's super cool. So I need a URL. Can I have just one? Oh, can I just totally cheat and grab like whatever copy image address? Okay, so then if we do this is just like pointless, but I just really interested to update thumbnail. Remember, we've already put our OAuth stuff in the account object, and then this just took a URL, I think. But I don't know if Unsplash protect this from happening. Update thumb. Upload thumbnail. Sorry. It's not update. Okay. So it seems to have returned a bunch of stuff. And then if we go to here, I actually don't know if there's a lag on YouTube's end. Like if you upload a new one, does it actually set it, or does it just give you that option when you're editing the video? If we go into here, and then go to like edit video, does it just show as one of the... Okay, it shows as one of... Okay, that's really cool. So it shows there, but how do you actually set it, or has it already happened and it's just the timing issue that now is already set? No, I just want to go back to all of the videos, refresh. Oh, okay. So it's now available. Can we... Okay, that's interesting. So again, this goes back to not knowing the behavior of the API you're interacting with most of the time. Like normally you would know how the system you're interacting with works before you get to play around in it. Okay, so we've uploaded that thumbnail. It showed, but can we actually set it? Or if we visit this as a non-logged in user, is it already set and I am just seeing that because I'm the account owner or I've started the video or something? No, okay. But it is there when I go to edit the video. Which one was it? This one? No, the other one. Damn it. Sorry, I'm just trying to see if there's any way. So that is set there as that is set there. I'm just checking if it's like a cache or delay or something like that. So if we again just go back to our incognito or private browse, just go to the video directly. But it starts playing. Tempted just to leave that and see if that just propagates, because it's interesting that it is here and I haven't actually set it, but it's just not showing on the... Okay, and it shows here. Yeah, I think that's just a propagation issue across YouTube, so I think that will show. Okay, so that would be another thing that you'd need to bear in mind. So how do I get to your channel? You know, okay, so we can do that next week. We can try and actually build it so that you change one. Okay, so let's answer the question that we had in the chat, which is more interesting than whatever I was looking at. That I keep forgetting to ask: how do you debug in VS Code? The answer is I probably don't use VS Code as well as I should do for that. So most debugging stuff that I do is like using things like pry and I mean, just stuff like put s or puts, and having my server run in terminal and then kind of playing around in there. I don't think I use very well any of the fancy VS Code features. I know that for definitely use the Rubocop stuff, which I know isn't debugging, but that stuff's pretty helpful. And whenever I have to work on React and TypeScript stuff, the tools in there seem like way better than anything for Rails. I've tried to turn on even stuff like, is it Solargraph or whatever the things is to do with the Ruby language, but it burns my CPU all the time, and I don't really get the bang for buck on actually making it more useful to move around. So I don't even have that stuff turned on. So the answer of what I do in VS Code specifically is probably not enough. If anyone has any extensions that are amazing for that, then I'm super interested to hear. But as soon as I need to debug something, I'm probably off into the terminal trying to make that work. Yeah, and just working with the code directly in there. Sorry, that's not a very good answer. But if someone has other answers, like I'm super interested. I know that a bunch of colleagues at work use RubyMine and are really into that. I have tried it a few times and I find it way slower. But I think it has some really helpful stuff in there, like for refactoring and like renaming, things like that. There's a bunch of tools. And people who love it really love it. So that might be worth, if anyone hasn't heard of that, it's a Rails Ruby based IDE, which every like once in a while I try. You're a Ruby user. Oh, okay, yeah, amazing. So yeah, a bunch of people that I know try. To be honest, I just haven't put the time aside to really getting into it. But you can see like if people, I mean, if you're easy to be familiar with this stuff, but if people haven't seen this, you get like IntelliSense and things like that. The my benchmark got set really high when I first was using these. I was using VS Studio. I have no idea what that's called these days on .NET code, and the IntelliSense for that was really good. And that was like a long time ago because I'm now old, and it was super helpful because it was the first time I'd worked with C# and VB.NET. Again, I don't even know if they're called that now. I haven't worked in that world for a long time, but it was really, really helpful, and the docs were well written and in the IDE. And they even had this integration with ASP.NET at the time. Again, this is how long ago this was. And ASP.NET was this forum, and you could read answers to questions in the IDE, which is pretty cool. And so this stuff is like totally helpful, and refactoring tools, things like that. I got out of that habit when I moved to using Sublime Text and didn't have those tools available. So I haven't rebuilt that muscle up. And as I said, I think if you do want to stick with VS Code, but you are interested in tools like this, there are extensions. So there's one specifically for Ruby. There's a couple for Rails. I haven't retried them recently. I didn't have a great experience with them because the indexing required, because Ruby, I think it's one of the issues, because I mean, like if you're doing a strongly typed language and you're building the IntelliSense, like the code is telling the IDE what this can be. With Ruby, anything could be anything, and you can change anything to anything, and good luck to whoever writes that code that tries to work it out, because you could write a class and then the class generates other classes that then have methods that mess with those methods and just like screw it all up, and then they're like, hey, write an IntelliSense for that. I want to get to the third class that gets created dynamically down, and I need that method. It's just like, no. So it's that's and I don't know how RubyMine handles anything like that. Other stuff for that are interested, like a couple of the Rails things like go to test, I find pretty helpful. And that's such a basic. I don't even know if I have them installed on this one. It might be on my work one, but yeah, I don't use this enough at all. All the cool things that So like I actually have Rubicop turned disabled at the moment on the Ruby Rubicop specifically because it just wasn't playing well with like my installed version of Ruby or something like that. And then because usually Rubicop is on CI for either my personal project or at work, then I'll often just like I think I have the other Rubicop extension. I've got them both off here. Yeah, and then it was fun. So VS Code Ruby I have on at the moment. That's syntax highlighting snippet and language configuration. Yeah, where's Go to Test? That's the one I use like a billion times a day. Oh, I think it's on my work one, but it's super helpful if you're editing a file. Oh, Go to Spec. There you go. It just literally just maps one folder to another, but it works on React and in Rails, and it takes you from the spec to the code and the code to the spec. And so that's really helpful, to be honest. Yeah, super helpful. Other people agreeing, I think, about how Ruby is a bit more flexible. Anyway, okay, right. That's gonna wrap us up today. So okay, let's just recap before we drop off what's happening and then where we were for next week. So we took a look at the difference in just using the app access code that we had previously, and then what we would need to do to get one specifically for, I'm just going to take this code off the screen because it's not related to what I'm actually talking about. So we had an app access code that was just an API that would allow us to access public read-only information from YouTube, and then we built our own version of that for Twitch. Again, we hard-coded it, but we kind of talked about how we might build our own. That was last week. And then we looked at the extension of that, which is setting up a client either via we used the YouTube developer dashboard, but we could do the same thing. Previously, we'd done it on the Twitch one, where you then get your all the client information, and then you get you can then define the URL where you would send the user. You also know which scopes to ask for. That's what do I want this to be able to do with this user's account when they authorize me. And on YouTube, if the more permissions you ask for, and if your app is public, you might have to have that code reviewed, which is all good. You then send the user off to give you those permissions. You then give that API endpoint a redirect URI. So where should they come back to? They come back with a code, and that code represents what they represents the authorization the user has given you, and you pass that code through when you want to do something. And the YouTube gem handled that for us brilliantly, and we also looked at how it was doing it. And then we took a look previously, because we'd done our own Twitch version. We looked at how the Twitch gem, which we looked at briefly, was doing it, and they actually were calling out to another gem, which was just called Ruby Twitch. Oh, sorry, it was just called Twitch OAuth 2, and that was literally just handling the OAuth part of Twitch, and the other gem was just sitting on top of that, which again is really helpful. And we looked at two gems that were essentially doing very similar work, and just you can then go and read them and take a look at the differences. And then we looked at updating the thumbnail for one of our videos, because that was something I was interested in doing. And then I think what we can do next week is look at storing those codes that come back against the appropriate model, and then when the user changes something in the Sundae Club app, having that change reflected on the third-party service. And that will kind of complete that loop where we have, when the user signs up, we currently go and get a load of information from YouTube or Twitch or whatever it is and store it locally, but we even have like paper trail or something, like doing versioning, so we know that what's changed. And then what we can then have is when they make a change on the Sundae Club app, they can then go back to the third party. That might be changing the thumbnail, the description, or the title, and then you can add more things in as you need them. So hopefully that was useful. Thank you so much for people that have dropped in the chat and people that have left comments and things like that. Have an amazing week. I hope things are good where you are, and I will see you all next Sunday. Thanks a lot.